Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another very special edition of Beyond the Album Cover with Deryle Mason, or known as J Mace, where not only do I interview people inside the music and entertainment industry, I interview people from all walks of life because everybody has two sides to every story. So side A and side B. So beyond the album cover, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So I have a good friend of mine who, like me, is a Spartan of University of North Carolina at Greensboro. We've known each other for years, have a lot of mutual friends. He is a good father, family man, uncle, brother, and a member of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So shout out to all the BGLO members on there. And if you like to get some good spirits and some good narratives over wine and whiskey, check out this podcast, the N.A.R.R.O.W podcast, with my good brother, good friend, my fellow Spartan alum, the one, the only Mr. Deryle Daniels. And also of you got a branding company, right? Go ahead and plug that really fast. Go ahead and unmute your mic.
My man, I appreciate you, Jay. Yeah, I am definitely doing a lot right now. So I'll give you a bit of background on me and take you to my current state. So originally from Durham, North Carolina, born and raised. Had the privilege, my parents made the tough sacrifices of driving us to school a lot of the times because we went to school in Chapel Hill, even when we did not live in the district, because at the time Durham schools were just terrible. I mean, there was a lot of violence coming out of Durham at that time. I don't know if you remember, but there was actually, when we got to college, there was a documentary called Welcome to Durham. And that documentary really honed in on the gang violence that was going on in Durham at the time. Like, you couldn't even wear a white t-shirt to most of the high schools because they associated that with, being a part of a gang. You'd have your white tee on your flag, and they'd be like, oh yeah, so he's a blood, or he's a Crip, or he's folk, or however it went. And so my parents said, nah, you're going to school in Chapel Hill, because in Durham, if your cousins get into a fight with a group of people, you're going to jump in with them. And I mean, that was the reality of the situation. And so while I did not like it at the time, I got a world-class education, basically a private school quality education for no money. So that was certainly a blessing. After high school, went to UNC-G where we got to meet, man, and become friends. Had an amazing experience at UNC-G, from being a resident advisor in Reynolds dorm, Philly dorm. I think, where else was I? I lived in Tower Village. I moved off campus for a year, but yeah, I had actually my first CA, we called it, our first year, but then it changed to RA toward like the end of our college experience, was one of your former guests, JD. So, brother Alpha Phi Alpha as well. And he was my CA, and then I became the CA in the room that he was in when I was becoming a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha. So that was kind of, it was destined to be. But after undergrad, ended up going to Charlotte for about 5 years. My girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, Desiree, and I met in college at Uncg. And so we moved to Charlotte, and we said, we're going to try to make it here. It's the biggest city in North Carolina. And we had a really, really great experience there, professionally, personally. We grew a lot, made a lot of friends. My brother moved down. And so we, had an amazing experience down in Charlotte. Then, just because we had both lost parents early, her mom got ill, my father had passed right after we graduated from undergrad. We decided to move back to Durham to be closer to family, because she was from Durham as well. We just didn't meet each other until we got to UNC-G. But yeah, we moved back to Durham, and we've been here for the past, we've been married for 6 years. So we've been here for the past 7 years now, I think. And yeah, really, really excited to talk with you today. And just, I'll throw some gems in there. It'll be a fun combo.
Yeah, definitely that. And I want to bring up real quickly, you mentioned being raised in the Bull City, which is
Yep.
Durham, for those that don't know. And I didn't know that until recently, about the history of Durham being played in the civil rights movement and
Oh yeah.
beyond, with SNCC being
Yep.
founded, Black Wall Street, and Ninth Wonder
Yep.
was breaking down the history of Wellington Duke, and then the secret game that Duke and Central played with Coach
Yep.
McClendon, and just how, and also the best of enemies with Miss
Mm-hmm.
Annie, and just how
Yep.
Durham really played a pivotal role in civil rights relations. And can you expound upon that more, being that you're a native of Durham?
Oh yeah, man. It's very interesting. We do have this current resurgence of a sort of Black Wall Street within Durham. And it's interesting because when we think about back in the day, Black Wall Street was supported by Black people. Financially, we were the ones who were the pillars of those institutions. You know, you have North Carolina Mutual, which is a Black-owned bank. Excuse me, yeah, no, excuse me. Mechanic Farmers is the Black-owned bank, which is still running to this day. I have an account with them. Then North Carolina Mutual is a life insurance. It was the largest African American life insurance company in the United States at its peak, prior to the gentrification and redlining that happened in the community. They ended up putting a highway right through the Hayti community, which was a very, very solid, strong Black community in Durham. And that happened across the country. You know, they break up the Black wealth so that we couldn't continue to build higher and higher and higher. Very systemic. But I grew up actually in White Rock Baptist Church, which is the most historic church in Durham. Martin Luther King has preached or had preached there before. And it was rumored that, when he was assassinated, this is true, this is fact. When he was assassinated, he was going to work on a sanitation workers strike in Memphis. But he was supposed to be in Durham that weekend, or that week. And so, he decided, hey, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to Memphis. I'm going to help these workers. But had the plans gone according to plan, he would have been actually in my city and likely would not have gotten assassinated, at least not on that day. So Durham is full of history. Some amazing, amazing men and women really shaped the community. And then you got, of course, university as well, like, world renowned science, hospital, engineering programs. So Durham is full of wealth. But when you're talking about Black Wall Streets, you hear Tulsa tossed around a lot, but Durham was equally impactful when you're talking about Black people and building wealth.
And also, can't forget Pastor Shirley Caesar.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, man. You got a ton of people. I'm trying to think. What's my man's name? He's an attorney. Um, gosh. So I worked at the School of Law at North Carolina Central, which
Mhm.
was the #1 public school of law for quite some time, and it just happens to be an HBCU as well. And so, I mean, you just got so much wealth in Durham and so many inspirational people who've come out of this community that really make you want to be better and know that you have a legacy to uphold.
And I grew up an hour 30 minutes north of Durham in
Yeah.
Gaston, North Carolina, which is the 252 area of North
Oh yeah.
Carolina. For those that don't know, it's very rural. Textile was big at one point in time, and once the textile mills went away, so did a lot of the jobs, and high rates of people living at or below the poverty line, and not really much success. And I want to know, are you familiar with the movie Norma Ray with Sally Field?
I'm not familiar with it.
All right, so it's about this woman who attempts to start a union at a textile mill, and actually that was based on the real life of Crystal Sutton, who was from Roanoke Rapids. And this
Hmm.
was at the J.P. Stevens plant in Roanoke Rapids, and a little bit of personal connection with that because my granddad used to work at the J.P. Stevens plant as a machine operator. And after she moved from Roanoke Rapids, she lived for years in and around Alamance County. I think
Yep.
she went to school at ACC, Alamance Community College, before
Hmm.
passing away. So just our state is just rich in history. We're more known than just the birthplace of Michael Jordan, Pepsi, Texas Pete, and being the first in flight.
Yeah, man. Actually, speaking of the 2-5, so my mother's from 252. She's from a small town. You know of Kinston.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
basketball, Haven,
Yeah,
Cornbread
yep.
Maxwell, and all those guys.
Jerry Stackhouse played that. Yeah, yeah. So she's from Kinston. Or excuse me, she's from, yeah, she was born in Kinston but raised in Trenton,
Okay.
Jones County. So I mean, yeah, 252 is big, and there is a wealth of land there, but not a lot of money being put into it. And so, hopefully we can get that turned around.
Yeah, definitely that land is wealth. And speaking of land, I want to touch on Seoul City. So for those of you that don't know about Seoul City, it
Yeah.
was a planned utopian development that was going to start in North Carolina. This was back in the 60s, 70s, I believe. I got a book on it, haven't read it yet. And Eva Clayton worked on Seoul City, but I used to pass by the marker for Seoul City all the time, going on 158 before hitting 85, going to school in Greensboro. So do you think that we are kind of at the moment now at a country seeing how so divided we are politically, and then with the vaccine issue and everything, that we're kind of going to get to the point where, okay, we need to build our own so that we can kind of sort of self-segregate?
Yeah. So while I am not a segregationist out of hate, I am one out of self-preservation. Um, I have a son now. I have a wife. Um, I understand that while we can live in unity, um, it would take white Americans deciding that, you know what, we want a more equitable society. Um, the rate at which black people at which black lives are taken at the hands of police officers and no one is held accountable, right?
Mm.
That's a problem for me. The rate at which black women are dying in the maternity wards of this country, that's a problem for me. The number of businesses in black communities that are not black owned is a problem for me. If we want to survive, if we want to build wealth, if we want to pass things on from generation to generation, while I think that we all benefit from a diverse experience, diverse educational experience. I also know that I cannot place diversity over preservation.
Mm.
And that being said, until white America decides that it would like to relinquish the stronghold of power economically and socially and within the justice system over black people, I don't believe that we can truly progress as one nation. And so does it mean that we have to, like you said, self-segregate and split up? Um I I I don't want us to have to, but I don't see another option if power is not going to be shared.
Mm-hmm. So America just need a good old restore the factory settings. Like you press that button on the back of your phone, just wipe the memory clean, start fresh. And I want to know, how did UNC-G come on your radar? And then also, given the climate we're in now, we're seeing an increase in enrollments in HBCUs, pretty much the rates that we haven't seen since the days of a different world, where enrollments were spiking at HBCUs.
Yeah, so UNC-G, it's interesting. I applied to 4 schools when I was in high school, my senior year. Did very well on the SATs. Actually, my SAT score was within whatever high percentile. But I went to a school in Chapel Hill, right? Bittersweet, right? I went to a school where a bunch of the kids' parents were doctors and lawyers. I graduated with like a 3.3 GPA, I think. Um, Unweighted, I was in the bottom half of my class. So I mean that just speaks to the caliber of students that I'm going up against. And so I got into 3 out of my 4 schools. Did not get into my number 1 pick, which was UNC Chapel Hill. Um, Decided I didn't want to go to NC State because it was a little too close to home. UNC Charlotte was a little further from home, and I didn't have a car at the time. But UNCG was right at that sweet spot. Not to mention, as you probably well remember, the male to female ratio at UNCG was was set just right for me. And so at that time, it was about 70% women, because UNCG, as you and I both know, everybody might not know, used to be North Carolina Women's College. And so they have a lot of professions that were initially and originally seen as women's jobs. You know, they have an amazing educational program, which traditionally, though it's no longer the case, was seen as a woman's job back in the day. They had a great nursing program, which once again was seen as a woman's job. And so you have a higher number of women at the school. And I'm like, okay, cool. If it's, and they have a great arts program. So I'm like, okay, it's 70% women. 30% men, you know, I can bank on half 10% of the guys maybe don't even like women. So now I'm sitting here looking at a crazy number of girls I can talk to. So that, I mean, honestly, not the best reason to pick a school, but I found my wife there too. So also not the worst reason, I guess.
Hey man, two for the price of one. Great education, and you got your future wife to be, because they do tell you orientation. Look to the left, look to the right. Some of y'all won't be here by spring semester, and you also may find your better half there. And also, UNC-G had 24/7 visitation for the dorms. Other schools didn't have that, because you would have that guard at the door making sure that you were in the dorm by this time. Now that UNC-G, but I'm going to be honest and tell you a little bit about how I came to UNC-G, because originally I wanted to go to Carolina. That was my dream school ever since I was a kid, Tar Heels fan. But what changed for me was I had a cousin that went to Carolina. It was telling me you can apply if you want to, but if you're this, it's going to be a little bit more difficult trying to navigate at a PWI. For those of you who don't know what PWI is, that's predominantly white institution. And so I enrolled in a program called Upward Bound. For those of you that's unfamiliar with Upward Bound, that's for first generation college students, and it helps them get acclimated to what a college environment would be like. And we would take a campus tour every Friday. UNC-G was on the list, and the guide was actually from my hometown, graduated a couple years before I did, and from my high school, and he gave a tour to campus, and I was sold on the spot for UNC-G. So I applied to UNC-G, A&T, Winston-Salem State, had my application for East Carolina down in Greenville. But what ended up happening was UNC-G was my first choice, and I got in first try. So once I did that, I was like, case closed. It's a done deal. I'm gonna go to UNC-G. But I thought I wasn't gonna get in because my SAT score was a 680, but my GPA was over 3.0. I was ranked middle of my class. But I think what saved me was this is the art of networking and shooting your shot, for real. So I was in a restaurant called Mayflower in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And great seafood, by the way. And
we got one in 919.
Yeah,
great food.
Most definitely. And if you are a college student, take advantage of those student discount deals. So long story short, the former superintendent of my school system was eating 2 tables down. And I told my mom and my stepdad, that's the superintendent of my school system. Do you think I should go to him to get a college recommendation? And they were like, sure. So I went up politely, and a couple of days later, I had a recommendation for UNC-G.
Wow. Yeah, networking, man. That's how I've been, you know, humbly speaking, though I am nowhere near where I want to be. Most of my professional success, be it entrepreneurial or in a career and employee phase of life, has been through networking. It's been knowing people, treating people right. Like my opportunities are almost always based on who I know and the fact that, you know, I treated them with respect and with some dignity.
Yeah, you don't want to step on people on your way up, because you don't know if you're going to need them when you're on your way down. But I want to know, from your perspective, did you experience any culture shock coming into UNC-G, interacting with, you know, the different ethnicities? Because I know for me personally speaking, it was a huge culture shock, because my area of the state and my high school was predominantly African American. You can count the number of white students on your fingers, and I had 84 seniors in my graduating class. So it was a huge steep learning curve for me, coming from small rural North Carolina to the Triad.
So for me, I actually can say that I did not have any culture shock. And more background on me. So my dad's family is up in New York and New Jersey. So I used to spend my summers up there. So I was actually very used to seeing people of all ethnicities from around the world. You know, I would see people who just didn't speak English very, very frequently. And not just talking about people who spoke Spanish, but, you know, French and Arabic and, you know, Swahili. Like, you know, when you're in a city like New York, you're on the subway with people who speak Mandarin and Cantonese and all these things. And so the culture shock was not there from a people perspective, but it was the first time I'd been in a classroom with such a diverse setting. Going to school in Chapel Hill, you didn't get that. Being in Durham, I go to church on Sundays, or I chill in the hood. You didn't get that. You didn't get the diversity of opinion that you had in the classroom, and that true, not even a melting pot. I don't like when people call America a melting pot, because it makes it seem like we blend together, but it's like a salad, right? We all have our individual flavors. We don't blend as much as we have our own pronounced points. And so I think that UNC-G was that. It was being in a classroom with people from around the world, because you did have the international students. I was actually an RA in Phillips Hawkins, which was the international dorm as well. And so you have people from around the world talking about their perspectives. And that was, I think that was the classroom culture shock that I never had. Usually I was the only Black kid in my class when I was in high school, when I was in my advanced courses. Maybe there was another one, but I think that, I really, really believe the classroom culture shock, and that difference of thought and opinion, that was powerful. And actually, UNC-G, I am currently on the board of directors for the business school and the general university. It's no longer a PWI. Now UNC-G is a minority serving institution, is what it's classified as. It is the most diverse school in the UNC system, with less than 50% white students and more than 50% minorities. So, I mean, it is truly, I think, a beacon for what an equitable educational institution should look like. That isn't an HBCU. I believe in HBCUs being HBCUs, but when you're talking about letting in people of a diverse background in a state as diverse as North Carolina, with about what I think is 21 or 22% African Americans, UNC-G is really leading the way in that.
Yep, Spartan Pride. And also I consider us to be HBCU adjacent, with A&T being right up the street, and then a couple minutes up 40, Winston-Salem State. And then you're within a not too far of a drive from all of the schools in the RTP area, and also Charlotte.
Yeah, man. So you've got all these HBCUs. I mean, you've got what in this area: Central, St. Aug, Shaw. Yep. In Charlotte, you've got Johnson C. Smith. So yeah, you got Fayetteville State, you got Elizabeth City. North Carolina definitely has a wealth of you got Bennett in Greensboro. Let's not forget them. Shout out to the Bells. So yeah, you've got a wealth of amazing Black institutions with some very, very strong history that really shaped America. Like, if you look up some of the alumni from these schools, all of these schools, you got some amazing individuals who are still doing and have done great things for not only our communities locally, but our state and our nation, our world. Jesse Jackson, right there at Jesse Jackson was at A&T. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan went to Winston-Salem State University. So I mean, you've got some really big names.
And also Livingstone down in Salisbury. But while touching on A&T, your boy J.R. Smith is an Aggie.
Right.
He's teeing up for the golf team. He penned a piece for the Undefeated talking about his love of Bowberry biscuits.
Man, I need to actually find a way to get in touch with JR. So the Bryan School has its annual scholarship golf tournament during homecoming. Now, even though UNC-G's homecoming got canceled this year, the golf tournament is still on, because one, it's a scholarship event, two, it's outdoors completely, and three, it's not drawing large crowds. So I decided, as a member of the board, I was going to make a donation. I'm using my business, Daniels Development and Branding LLC, to sponsor a hole. The sponsorship money goes directly to a student scholarship, so I'm very excited about it. Thing is, with the sponsorship, you end up getting a golf team. Your boy's never played a round of golf ever. So I'm going to go out. I've got a set of clubs. I'm going to go out there. I'll have a good time. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm probably going to embarrass myself, but I need to get J.R. Smith's number so he can be like my fourth player. Like, I need that last player to just go ahead and take care of the win for me. So if y'all know Mr. Smith, Brother Smith, J.R. Smith, my boy, actually Carl Hairston, he is one of the assistant athletic directors at A&T. Carl, can you please get me JR's number? Because I need a good fourth.
Yeah, and also bring him a plate of Stephanie's and find some Men's Grill wing sauce.
Man, don't even mention Minge, bro. I miss Minge so badly. Like that was the spot in college.
That sauce, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
That sauce, if you know, you know. That sauce was crack.
man, man. And people like the thing is, every few months, I'll see somebody put on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, don't y'all miss Minge? And I can almost taste it still. Like that's how powerful those wings were.
Yes, but one spot in Greensboro that I never had during my 5 years at G was Maxie B's.
Oh man, yeah. I definitely went there a couple times. It was a nice little date spot. It's got some great dessert. So yeah, that's you, next time you come home, you gotta go, bro.
But for sure, and what you would do if you had a little bit of money when that refund check hit, this before direct deposit, where you had to go to the campus mailbox and look and see if that refund check come in, or do that buyback hustle where, hey, I need $100, let me go sell my book back. And if you had enough money, you would order steak out. But you only did it on special occasions, though, especially if you
Oh
were
man,
trying to impress a lady friend and your roommate was gone for the weekend.
man. Yeah, UNC-G, man. I had some amazing times there. Or get your refund check, head straight to Four Seasons Mall, try to get fresh in the Gerbo jeans. For me, I was still on the Dickies, the fitteds, the polos,
Extra
real
long white
heavy.
tees.
Oh yeah, man. The Nikes with the high tops. Like, I was very, and I mean, I don't know if I'm pushing this forward, but can I go into the
Yeah,
Dipset
go ahead.
conversation?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So
Go
yeah,
ahead.
so I was very heavily, my style was very influenced by Dipset when I was in high school. Mixture, sometimes Dipset, sometimes Kanye, but I was more often than not, I would be found in a pair of Dickies, some high top Nikes, maybe some Forces or something, um, and a fitted. And so like that was my style. So when I would get my refund check, because I didn't have money growing up, like I worked, so I earned my money. I hustled. I sold chips out of my backpack. You remember those little like barrels of juices, like
Oh,
the juice barrels.
the little huggies.
Yeah. So and when I was in middle school and high school, they call them Daryl's barrels, and I'd be sitting there selling those little juice barrels like out of my backpack. I would find ways to make money so that I could get fresh. Um, and get fresh to me was whenever I would go up to New York for the summer, I would like just buy like the freshest stuff I could find. Like, I would buy like tall tees. And I remember there was one t-shirt, and it was basically a Raisin Bran box of cereal, but instead it said Raisin Grans, and then it had like one scoop of hustle, where the Raisin Bran said like one scoop of raisins. I was just trying to get like New York City fresh, because Dipset was like that. I was like, yo, these are the guys who have style, swag. Like that's who I would say, as far as like celebrity, um, not role models, celebrity role models. I was like, yo, they're fresh. They can spit. Um, they got style. So Dipset was my crew in my mind. That's I was rocking with Jim Jones real heavy. Um, like I rock with Cameron, rock with Jewels, but like I felt like I could relate to Jim because he was not supposed to be where he was as far as being a rapper. He was supposed to be a hype man, but he said, "Yo, no, I want to get in this lane. I'm going to find a way to get better in this lane." And I think that he's truly done that. And so I asked if I can go ahead and jump into the Dipset thing, because I ended up going to the Dipset Locks versus, as you saw. And it was so Desiree and I had a son 5 months ago now. So this was 4 months into him being born, and um I was like, yo, babe, I really want to go to the Dipset Locks show, because I'm already a big Dipset fan. I've seen them in concert before, but I'm also a Locks fan. I'm a big Jada fan, especially. And I had never seen Jada or the Locks in concert. They had come to Richmond this summer, but I didn't get a chance to go up there to see that show. So I was like, I want to go up to New York. At the time, I had been vaccinated, one, and I still am vaccinated, of course, but I was vaccinated at that time, and Delta variant wasn't a point of conversation. So I was like, I'm good, because I'm thinking, once you got the vaccine, you can do what you want to do. You can move a little bit more freely, and everybody in the building had to have the vaccine. So she was like, you know what, go ahead. So I copped a ticket. I copped the ticket in the back of the arena, $35, sitting in section 303. because I just wanted to be in the building with the energy. Like I wanted to be in New York when two of New York's realest crews go at it head to head. So caught my ticket, fly up to New York. Um, I fly up to New York and get there at like 5 o'clock in the evening. I go have some drinks with a couple of my fraternity brothers, two of my line brothers, one of my neos. And then I go to the show. I get to the show right before it starts, and I'm like, yo, I want to take a picture by the stage. So I walk with confidence down to the very front. And I'm right there. I'm in front of the arena. It's in Madison Square Garden in the Hulu Theater. And so I go, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna take a selfie at the stage. I'm gonna go to my seat. And then I get up there and I'm looking around. I'm like, well, I'm already up here. Let me just move around. There was a bar backstage. I was like, I'm gonna get a drink real quickly. So I walked to the backstage bar and grab a Jameson, Irish whiskey. And then I'm like, I'm already up here and the DJs are spinning. I'm just gonna stay up here and see, what the vibes are looking like. And then I see a seat in the very front row. And I'm like, nobody's sitting here. You know what? I'm gonna try it. I lied to you not, bro. I paid for a $45 ticket in the back of the arena. The entire show, I'm sitting front row. Behind me to the right is Fabulous. Behind me to the left and a little bit diagonal is Fat Joe. So I'm ahead of like celebrities. The only row that was in front of me was Timberland's, and that's because he is one of the creators of Versus. And so they had to set out a special row for him so that he would be right there at the stage. But like I went from paying for a $45 seat to sitting in a seat that was, I looked it up later, $1,056. I mean, it was an amazing experience. Got to see two of my favorite groups, and even though Dipset fumbled the rock, I think, it still was really, really cool to be in that energy and to see all of New York, like the crowd just really, really rocking with the fact that these two could come together in this space, go head to head, and it be all love.
Right. Jada was on his purple diamond Pokemon card that night, bro.
Man, well, I think Jada, I don't know if you saw the one with Jada and Fab.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, so Jada killed. I mean, I'm a big Fab fan too. Like, so when I'm sitting there in front of Fabulous, I'm like, yo, and I talked to Fab or whatever, dapped him up. He was cool. Because he was there with his wife or girlfriend. I don't know if they're married yet, but whatever. He was there with Emily B. And so talked to Fab for a second. But Jada and Fab ended up going head to head. And I think Jada likes being the underdog. Like, that's what I've realized. He likes being, because everybody's like, yo, Fab's got hits. Same thing you said about Dipset, right? Dipset has the hits. Like the groups that have the club hits or the acts that have the club hits, you're thinking, yo, they're gonna win it easily. The thing is, right? Jada was like, nah, I'm gonna take y'all to the streets. Like, I'm gonna keep it real gutter. And if you try to come here with me, you're going to lose. And that's what happened with Dipset. That's what happened with Fabulous. Like, Jada is that guy, I think, who likes being underestimated. He has an album called Top 5 Dead or Alive. And as far as lyrically, I mean, lyrical mainstream artist, he can arguably make that statement. And you really will have to look at his body of work and say, yo, lyrically, he might not have the Billboard hits, but he definitely has the lyricism to carry himself in that conversation.
Right, because when I looked at the battle between Dipset and Locks, you could tell from the Locks how them being under Diddy at Bad Boy really, really helped them out, because they were really giving people a show, while Dipset, they looked very disjointed, disorganized, and I don't know what the word Freaky Zeke was doing.
Oh man, he was hilarious. So I don't know if you know this, man, but Freaky actually owned. Do you remember Palmetto's in Greensboro? Did you ever go there?
Palmetto's? Nah, I was a square. I didn't really partake in the nightclub life, so
no, it wasn't. It was actually it was a restaurant. But it was downtown, and it was open for like 2 years. But Freaky Zeke was one of the part owners there. So Dipset has a pretty solid hold in North Carolina, because a couple of them have like businesses down here. And so that was one of the businesses that they owned. Supposedly they had some tax issues after a few years. But yeah, Freaky Zeke, I've had a chance to see him in person. But he's just funny, man. He's a comedian, I think. I think that he just he plays his role very well. He gets stuff hype. But I don't think he's anybody to be taken seriously. But you can definitely laugh at him the whole time because he was wilding. It was really really funny to see him in person doing that.
Right. Well, what would have made the battle more funny, in my opinion, if the Locks would have said, the Dip said, "Hey, let me get an extra water, B," and somebody bring out a bag of potato chips, say, "Real rappers get washed every day, B." But you're gonna be all right though.
Yo,
No ribs,
yo,
no soy sauce, no champagne. You gets nothing.
man, that is my movie, Paid in Full. Actually, so
Classic.
for my 30th, yeah, for my 30th birthday, Desiree threw me, and being I was born in the 80s, she threw me an 80s themed birthday party, and basically I was eight Mitch coming into the party, like when in the movie where like all the money is flying and stuff, like she set it up in that way, and
Okay.
some of my boys dressed like they were from Paid in Full. Everybody had on 80s gear. So that was a very, very fun birthday party. But yeah, man, I am very, very much, while I am North Carolina born and bred, I have a lot of ties to an affinity for New York. To the point that in New York hip hop, especially, one of my cousins is a huge DJ. He's been DJing in New York. I'm forgetting the radio station's name, but he's been DJing there for basically my entire life. He was in high school when I was born, so as far as I can remember, he's been DJing in New York. So like New York hip hop has always had a huge impact on who I am, and so I couldn't miss that moment, bro.
Right. And speaking of New York hip hop, Nas just released King's Disease 2, and then
Oh
AZ
yeah.
released the follow up to his 1995 classic Do or Die 2. And then Tuesday, it was another versus battle between Fat Joe and Ja Rule. I just got done seeing the battle as we're taping the podcast, and I underestimated Ja Rule. Ja
Me
Rule
too.
was huge before 50 came in, and we all know
Oh
how
yeah.
that turned out.
It's sad. That was sad. How 50 really destroyed his career. But I think that one of the reasons that happened, I think it's a life lesson. Ja Rule gave 50 Cent too much energy after it happened. Like he could have he that was a battle that he just wasn't able to win, but he kept trying to go back. Like that clap back track. He, that was a straight diss. And it's like, yo, don't give him energy. Like keep staying in your lane. Like it's like the Fabulous and Jadakiss verses. Like stay in your lane. When you try to step into somebody else's lane, you're going to lose. And so I think that that's what happened to Ja Rule's career. But yeah, that versus battle, man, was beastie. And I truly believe that Fat Joe is a better lyricist 8 days a week. You can't argue with that. But Ja Rule had more hits, and he was able to play those hits. And so, I mean, I don't know. I won't call winner or loser because I think it was just a great showing of artistry. But Ja Rule held his own the whole time, and so did Joe. Like Joe has, like he said, 26 years of hits or 26 years of hip hop. And a lot of those years involved hit music. So I couldn't call a winner or loser, but I liked the showmanship.
Right. And it also highlighted, in my opinion, Ja Rule's set list for verses, just how huge Murder Inc.'s run was with
Oh
him
yeah.
and Ashanti. I mean, Ashanti was white
Mhm.
hot.
Oh yeah. That woman is gorgeous. I told my wife, I said, yo, if I won't married, I would try to meet her. Nah, Ashanti is tough. And we had some good music, I think, during our high school years, man, during our formative years, that really made us appreciate what hip hop should be. I can't say the same for kids these days. Like some of the,
Yeah.
the hip hop these days, I just can't get with it. And it's not about like, anything about like, people being like, what's my man's name? Takashi, his weird hair. It's not about that. It's not about Lil Nas X. It's about the actual lyricism and showmanship that went into the art and the craft. And I could see that during our era, cats studied the old heads. They studied their rap. I think that that kind of respect and homage is not it's not paid anymore.
Nope, we had the snap era. Now, when I first heard Laffy Taffy, I think it was either at somebody's dorm room or if you remember Alexander Devros, I was
Oh yeah.
listening to. I was like, "What in the world is this?" Then kind of find out coming out of Atlanta, and then not too long after that, T Pain comes out with "I'm Sprung," and I'm thinking, this is the most terriblest song I've ever heard. But both of those movements ended up blowing up. And then also sandwiched in, we had the crunk era, Little John,
Yeah.
Crime Mob, 3-6. I mean, Nuck If You Buck is a rallying cry. And also Pastor
Yeah.
Troy, No More Playing GA. Mess
Oh,
around
yeah.
and find out when that record comes on.
Man, so when we were in high school, I played football, and one of my still good friends, Matt Jenkins, he put me on to Pastor Troy's group. I didn't know he had a group at first, but he had a group called DSGB, Down South Georgia Boys. And so we used to listen to them before the games. I mean, this was when we had, portable CD players, Discman, and everything like that. And so you'd be on the bus to another game, and you'd be just getting in the zone with some PT and DSGB. And I mean, that was a really good time in hip hop. Like, yeah, it was violent. And that's the problem, right? It was not very positive music that was being played, but it will get you in the zone when you needed to knock somebody on their backside.
Right. And also a lot of it at the time, very homophobic, very
Yeah,
misogynistic, and
yeah.
seeing how we are evolved now as a society with the Me Too movement and the LGBTQ community saying, no, we're not going to live like we once did. It seems like hip hop has kind of sort of taken the high road and has grown up, like Jay-Z said, and changed
Hmm.
clothes, ditch the throwback, get buttoned up.
Yeah, man. I was thinking recently, some of the lyrics that were rapped when we were younger, you can't rap those anymore. People using the F word, the derogatory word toward homosexual people, like, you don't use that language anymore. And I'm glad, right? Because I personally, I'm sure, as like, in middle school, kids say that stuff. I stopped using that word when I found out what it meant, and that it was a direct reference to burning people at the stake because of their gender, or their sexual orientation. So I mean, I'm glad that we're growing up. I'm glad that we've matured as a culture. I need us to do it toward one another, right? So don't just stop talking derogatorily about women. Don't just stop talking derogatorily about the LGBTQ plus community. But let's stop speaking hate toward other Black people as well. Like, let's try to change these lyrics and spit some uplift. But I think that that's the progress that we're making. You got artists like J. Cole out there. Kendrick Lamar. What's my man's name? Of course, Common, uh, Logic. Like, there are a lot of hip hop artists right now that are Black and speaking into Black positivity, and that's what I'm loving to see.
Right. And you mentioned J. Cole, and I want to talk about NC's role in hip hop. You have J. Cole out of Vietnam, aka Fayetteville, Rhapsody out of Snow
Yes.
Hill. Then, of course, who laid the foundation for that was Little Brother. And
Mm-hmm.
then Big Daddy Kane lives in North Carolina. And we can go on Ski Beats and about
Yep.
how North Carolina has played a pivotal role, not in just hip hop, but music in general. Sunshine Anderson, Anthony Hamilton,
John
Jodeci,
Coltrane. I mean, yeah.
Maceo Parker, the list goes on and on.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, man. Music in North Carolina is is a beautiful thing. Actually, I recorded an episode that I just released this past week at Soul Lab Studios in Greensboro. One of my boys owns that. The Hamiltons record there. So I mean, you've got a bunch of great music acts. He's recorded with Jada Kiss, Jim Jones. Like, when cats come through here, he has a very, very quality studio that people work out of. So yeah, I really, really appreciate the musical culture of North Carolina. Actually, so I was looking I don't know if you noticed, but I was looking at my bookshelf a couple times trying to figure something out, right? So I found it. So this book right here, I don't know how big you are on jazz, but you know the name Wynton Marsalis?
Yes.
Yes. So Wynton Marsalis, the premier trumpeter of our lifetime. So Wynton, when I was and see, like I told you I was gonna drop a gem, right?
Mhm.
So when I was a kid, my dad was a sports and entertainment agent. So he worked with musicians, athletes, um, just like on getting their contracts together. And so he ended up doing some work with Wynton. When I was a kid, that's how he met Wynton. Wynton came through Chapel Hill, and he ended up coming to our house afterward. So at this point, man, my dad was, like I said, he was an agent. And so Wynton came to our house, the band came to our house. My parents threw him a little after show party. And I have a section in Winton's autobiography. The section is
Nice.
called Daryl Sings the Blues. And so, I mean, it's just crazy to me because for the rest of my life and for, my son's life and his son's life, their, one of their patriarchs will be named in the book of a Grammy Award winning jazz musician. So your music, man, music has always played a huge role in my life, whether it be jazz, hip hop, R&B. I'm big on rock music too, like pop rock, classic rock. When I was younger, I played piano for a while. So classical music, like music, I think transcends cultures. Like you don't have to like a genre of music to appreciate the artistry behind it.
Right.
And so that's one thing that I'm really glad that you have this platform here to talk about music and the unity that it brings and the culture around it.
Yeah, because I believe Nina Simone, wasn't she born in North Carolina and lived there for a little bit? I believe she was, and I think Tupac's mom was born in Lumberton.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
Yep, and I think Benjamin Crump is from Lumberton as well. Lived in Lumberton for a little bit, and then also Tamika Mallory's dad is from my hometown of North Carolina. And full disclosure, she's also my cousin.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we're third cousins. Her dad and my dad are cousins, so we're related down the line.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
But I want to talk about music for a real quick moment. I don't know if you knew this, but at the School of Music at UNC-G, you know how they'll have guest faculty members come and teach for a stead and before they go off to their next school. So this man ends up coming up teaching at the School of Music. Kind of find out that he is a well-known musician, plays trumpet, and his name was Fred Wesley. But I didn't know until later on, while I was doing my show at UNC-G and after he had left, that was Fred Wesley from Fred Wesley and the JBs with James Brown.
Wow.
And had I would have known that, I would have scooped him and got him on my radio show at WAG for an interview. I'm like, man.
Yeah.
But the one
I remember
thing,
we had that show.
Yeah, man. So the one thing I am grateful for UNC-G was the awesome selection of speakers that they would get to come and speak. We had a chance to see Cornel West, Tavis Smiley, Chuck D,
Michael Eric Dyson,
Reverend Al Sharpton, like you mentioned, Michael Eric Dyson. The list goes on and
Bernice
on.
King came one year. Yeah, it was yes, they really did a good job of selecting some phenomenal speakers for different events at UNC-G. They put some money and some effort behind that.
Right, because I remember going to see Dr. Cornel West and how I got there maybe an hour or two before Cone Ballroom opened up, because I knew it was going to be thick as thieves in there, and it was literally standing room only. People were standing on the walls. You couldn't get a seat. So I got a chance to ask him a quick question really quick before he got a chance to speak. And I was like, oh, okay. But man, he is one of the top intellects of our time. And just to hear him speak, I was just like, well, Michael Eric Dyson as well. I somehow finagled my way to like a pre-speech little reception, because he's like, my man interviewed me, so I'm going to go ahead and bring him in the spot like my N1. So, UNC-G just really opened our horizons to, diverse ways of thinking, ways of critical thinking, and also fun social aspects, because I know some people probably had a great time pre-gaming before going to Alexander Devereaux's, the N.N.R.R.O.W, or Rumba Latina on Thursday nights, catching that heat bus.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, it was really, really good times. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I would love to do it again, but it was a one and done experience, and it served its purpose at the time. Like at this point, I can't party like I used to.
Nope.
Even having the brand Narratives Over Wine and Whiskey, right? I have an amazing whiskey collection. I don't drink like I did when I was an undergrad. I can't. My body, like I'm in my 30s, like I'm gaining weight. My midsection, like my pants aren't fitting the same way. Like I can't do the things I did at that age. But I'm glad that I did it when I did it, so that now I can look back and just laugh about a lot of it and enjoy those memories.
Right. And speaking of college, with social media and how everything has changed with Me Too, how do you think the college experience has changed for the current generation of students? Whereas social media was still in its infancy when we were at UNC-G, but now it's everywhere and you can't really enjoy it as much because you can't be as discreet. Then you also got to be more cautious with things, especially, with ladies walking on campus alone at night and you just got a call box, which definitely wouldn't fly now.
Yeah, man. Even outside of just the Me Too movement, but the Black Lives Matter movement and the hashtag everybody who sadly is getting murdered either by police or by individuals, I'll say that there is a, a plus to this level of awareness, right? It's that people are more cautious, hopefully, with the decisions they're making. Whatever the reason is, right? Maybe they're scared that they'll get caught. Maybe they actually are having a change of mind. Either way, if it's keeping people safer, keeping people more healthy, more comfortable, that's great. Now, hopefully, we reach a point in history where it's not that you're afraid of being caught, but it's that that you're making a poor decision. But I do think that the constant spotlight that is put on the way men interact with women these days is very positive. Getting rid of some of this misogyny and the patriarchy. The excuse that boys will be boys isn't flying anymore, especially when you're talking about not boys but young men who are in their late teens, early 20s, and still trying to use the excuse that boys will be boys. Come on, man. Like we've got to grow past that, because while it may not be actively committing rape, it is promoting rape culture. It is promoting misogyny. It is promoting a level of chauvinism and sexism that not only is it unhealthy, but it's just plain wrong.
Right. And like Queen Latifah said on UNITY, who you calling a you know what? So
Yeah.
that definitely doesn't fly now. The locker room, boys will be boys,
Mm-mm.
golf club, fraternity house mentality, definitely not now in today's time, in today's culture. Because if you look at, some of the activities that were done at undergraduate, you definitely cannot do it now. And it's definitely a different era and kids now move different.
Yep. Yeah, man. But I'm glad, right? Like I want to raise my son in a world where he knows that some of this stuff isn't it's not okay. I mean, I'll be transparent, right? When I was in middle school, your boys would dare you. I bet you won't go smack her butt, and like you do it. And my father, when I got in trouble for it, right? So my father was like, yeah, nah, you're gonna apologize to her. Like this is not what we do. This is not how we carry ourselves. And I think that now it's more acceptable to tell kids at a younger age that's not what we do. Like hey, if your friends tell you you're supposed to do something, like no, keep your hands to yourself. And really, really mean it. Like boys or girls, like keep your hands to yourself. Because when I was a kid and I heard keep your hands to yourself, it was more so like, yo, don't get into fights. But now it's like parents are telling their sons, hey, keep your hands to yourself. Unless you're invited to engage with this other young person, you know, just be cool, be chill. And I think that's an important lesson. And so I'm glad to see the progress that is happening in that way.
Right? Because if she says no, that means no. Stop it there. Because like
Yeah.
you in middle school, your boys, they smack it up, flip it, rub it down, pop, tighten up. But and also those long bus trips. If you know about them long bus trips, them field trips, and the chaperones sit up in the front, if you know, I never partake in any of that activity. I just want to give a disclaimer for that, but just knowing how that behavior nowadays is unacceptable.
Oh yeah.
But going into fatherhood for you, how has fatherhood changed you for the better?
Oh man. So it is the best, toughest, excuse me, it is the best, most difficult decision I've ever made, right? And it's a blessing. I would not trade Avery for the world. He is just every day I wake up and I'm like, even if I'm exhausted, right? Because usually I am, he'll wake me up and I'm still tired from the day before when he was trying to, he needed to wake up for a diaper change or something. And so I'm exhausted, but he smiles at me and I'm like, yo, I can do this again today. It has leveled up my focus and my determination. um I really know that I have no choice but to give him more opportunities than I had, just like my parents worked to give me more opportunities than they had. And that's how it should be. So it's a great feeling. But it's definitely not always a walk in the park, especially with a 5-month-old. Like there are days where, like, especially during COVID too, right? Like when we're not comfortable sending him to daycare yet, because it's our first child and we don't know how things are progressing. And so to each family their own, but it's just we both are privileged enough to be able to work from home, have flexible jobs. But there are days where I'm trying to really focus on work and I'm just hearing whining and crying. And so, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? I'm able to see everything he does throughout the day. I'm able to see when he's his first time rolling over, or I'm able to be there his first time eating like a solid food. But at the same time, it's like, wow, I'm trying to work and I don't have the luxury of putting my child in daycare right now. So, COVID has definitely thrown a wrench in what I thought the parenting experience would be.
Yeah, and definitely got to sleep when they sleep, get it in when you
Yeah.
can, and enjoy that favorite snack or beverage when you can get that me time. Now, I want to go into marriage really quick and how's that changed you, but I don't know if you know how I met my wife, so I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes version. So,
Yeah.
eHarmony, 2011, we started talking. We were flying back and forth to different destinations to meet each other every couple months or so. Then in 2014, I made the leap to pack up everything that could fit in my broke down car and stacked up some money for my little part-time gig, drove cross country, my mom, her boyfriend, and myself from North Carolina to New Mexico, and ended up living in Albuquerque for about a little over a year. Then ended up moving to Farmington, New Mexico, which is 3 hours north of Albuquerque, where I currently reside. And on October 1st, it'll be 5 years of marriage for us.
Wow, man. Congratulations. Yeah, we're October the 11th, and it'll be 6 years of marriage for us. And so, I think that you learn a lot about yourself in marriage, right? You learn about what is and isn't important to you. You learn um how to grow and how to develop and how to become more selfless. And it's always a journey, right? You're always working to get better. My godparents just hit 56 years of marriage on September 11th. So they were married in 1965, and they say they're still enjoying it. They have a beautiful marriage. They have what I would aspire to at that point. But it's still a journey, and they had their moments where it was tough, but they pushed through it. And I mean, I think it's the same thing with us. We've had our challenges. We've had the moments where we're like, yo, my friends are single. What is that like sometimes? But you choose to stay even in the storms and the challenging moments and the tears maybe that are shared, because you know that this is your person.
Right, because I know for me, the big lesson I had to learn in marriage is being selfless because I grew up as the only
Mhm.
child. So I never really had to learn how to think of someone other than myself. But when my wife came into the picture, that's where I had to start learning, oh, it's not about me. I got to think about someone else's needs other than my own. And then, like you were saying, when you want to go out with your friends, you got to handle with the Neo line and the Carrie Hilson joint, Love Knock You Down. Y'all go ahead. I'm gonna kick it with my girl today.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And that's real. And I'm learning that more and more, especially now with the child. Like, tonight I've got the men's fellowship coming and I'm hosting them at the house. But it's like finding ways to do both. So it's finding like for instance, like I was like, okay, we got the baby. I don't want to be out and hanging out. I want to be able to help. So I'll have people at the house. We'll chill on our patio. And if I need to come in and change a diaper, guess what? I can come in, help out, and go back outside.
Mm, yeah, so you got to find creative ways. And before I get you on out of here, can we talk about how the N.A.R.R.O.W podcast came to be?
Yeah, man. So for 5 years, I actually had a blog. So I had the Daniels Daily Reader that I started in 2012. And for 5 years, I wrote 5 days a week about young professionals and professional development. Um, and then I realized, you know what? Fewer people are reading blogs anymore, and people are actually listening to podcasts a lot more. I wasn't a podcast listener. I'm a reader. I love to read. You can see right here behind me, I've got this bookshelf. I've got another bookshelf. I've got more books than you can see right now, or than are in this room. But I also knew that I wanted to have an impact, and so I knew I could speak well. I knew that I was articulate. I said, let me see how I sound on a microphone. And so I bought a pretty inexpensive mic with an Amazon gift card that I gotten from some job, I think, as like a prize. And I tried it out. And then I said, all right, well, I've done this. Let me try to get another mic. So season two, I leveled up my microphones. Um, and then I was like, okay, I'm doing well. And I leveled up on season three. But one thing is for me, it was supposed to be the Narratives Over Whiskey podcast. I'm a big whiskey fan. Wine is cool, but whiskey is my go-to spirit. The thing is, I realized everybody doesn't like whiskey, and if I'm going to have guests on here, I need to be able to appeal to them as well. So I said, if you don't drink whiskey, but you do drink, right? So everybody doesn't drink. One of my boys came on; he had coffee because he doesn't drink. He's a police officer, or excuse me, a sheriff, and so I was like, you have coffee or whatever, but if you do partake in libations, if you don't drink whiskey, you'll probably have a glass of wine. So I was like, narratives over wine and whiskey it has a nice ring to it. And I had UNC-G alumnus Tully Murray. He did my logo for it. He does almost all my graphic design right now. He did my logo for my photography company. He did it for my branding company. Like, he is a phenomenal artist. And so yeah, I developed this brand to the point that now, got sponsorships. I get free samples of whiskey and different wines and things like that. And I built up this brand so that it can continue to go further. And really, it's not even about the wine or the whiskey. It's about the conversations that we have while having a good drink. So check me out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at N.A.R.R.O.W podcast, N.A.R.R.O.W podcast. And I do giveaways. So I do like wine and whiskey giveaways. So yeah, check me out.
Yeah, it's definitely a great podcast. One of the podcasts that I really love to listen to. And hey, if you ever need me as a guest, I have my H2O and be on standby, bro.
My man, hey, look, and we will do that. It's it'll be a fun combo.
Yes, sir. And do you have any shout outs you want to give before we wrap, and also plug again your social media? And also, I want to say thank you for the code group. It's been a
Oh
godsend.
yeah. Oh yeah, man. So yeah, shout outs. Shout out to at I Can You Can Vegan. That is my wife's brand. She has an amazing vegan platform trying to push Black people predominantly to look more at their dietary intake. I'm not vegan. I still love a good steak or burger from time to time, but I'll say that, like, I've developed a healthier diet as I've increased my vegetable intake. So check her out. Check out uh, at Shop Never Settle on Instagram. Never Settle's UNC-G alumnus as well. Vincent McLean has an amazing clothing brand. At Mr. George Achimpong, that's my financial advisor, as well as one of my big brothers in my fraternity, has an amazing brand trying to build Black wealth. Um, I mean, there are a ton. I'm shouting them out all the time on my platform. And so I'll say you can follow my podcast at N.A.R.R.O.W podcast, N.A.R.R.O.W podcast, or check me out on Instagram at Deryle Daniels Jr. And I'm always shouting out Black and brown businesses because, one more at Sensational Sangria. So yeah, there are a ton of amazing Black owned brands that I rock with. And I encourage you to go find some and share them, like, because that's how we build this generational wealth.
Yeah, most definitely that. And real quickly, touch on gentrification and how that's affected, Durham, RTP, the
Oh
triad,
yeah.
and how we can try to combat it to make sure that folks can still live in areas at a reasonable price so that way they're not priced out.
Well, I think it goes to to really making sure that your voice is heard in voting, and making sure that you're voting in people who are going to, if anybody can sell the land they want to sell, right? The problem is property taxes going up and pushing people out of these communities. We need to stop that from happening. That can be changed with policy, right? You can have a tax limit set for people who've been in these communities for generations. The problem is these communities get greedy. They want more and more and more, and they push out the people who've held the community down for generations. My grandmother has a home that is maybe 8 minutes from downtown Durham, really prime realty. Prices, or the she's paid off the home, thankfully. It's a family house that we've had for now 4 generations. But the thing is, the property tax keeps going up. A lot of times we'll end up selling the homes for lower than their value so that we can get out of paying taxes on them. But let's work on keeping these families in the home. And if you can afford to pay grandma's property taxes, get together with your cousins and do that, and have her pass the house down generation to generation, so that we can maintain ownership of our communities, and not have people trying to push us out of them.
Right. And if you need further explanation, just look at the Lawrence Fishburne, Cuba Gooding Jr., Morris Chestnut scene in Boys in the Hood, where they're at the billboard. If you know, you know. Just wanted to get that burning question out before we wrap. You can catch this interview on audio and video format wherever you stream podcasts, and on the YouTube channel, Beyond the Album Cover. That's the same name on Facebook and other forms of social media. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend, Renaissance man, narratives over wine and whiskey, great dad, and jack of all trades, master of none, Mr. Deryle Daniels. Deryle, thank you for coming on to Beyond the Album Cover, bro. I appreciate it.
My man, I appreciate you, Jay.
Yes, sir.